Marc, you are the founder and CEO of MycoStories, an organization focused on supporting and exploring the applications of fungi for sustainable solutions. We both got to know each other through LinkedIn, which it was quite interesting to me to see someone, especially from a marketing background, doing the work you're doing. We're going to dive into it in a bit. I'd like to maybe give you also the opportunity to maybe just, tell the audience a little bit who you are, and if you can also, include your background, because I think that is probably the reason why MycoStories became so big.
Yeah, great to be here, and really happy to be able to share a little more about this fantastic mycelium of sorts within the fungi ecosystems that I've created. But maybe before we go in the depth of the topic, a few words on myself. So my background is business and marketing. That's what I studied. I did a master's in New Delhi in India, which was the beginning of my foray into Asia. I spent 10 years in Asia, which obviously already informed a little bit of my passion and interest for mushrooms. Mm-hmm. And then because in Asia and in China, it doesn't really matter what you study, but it's more about doing things. And when you start doing things, people give you more responsibilities. I ended up actually working in tech. And I worked as a product owner at Tencent, one of China's largest technology company. And then I veered back to my marketing background, mixing technology and marketing at a big advertising company called Ogilvy and Mather. And I was running their digital lab in Shanghai, then running an innovation agency for them in Singapore. And typically 10 years into my career, in the big hurrah moment of sustainability of the 2010 era, I kind of shifted my career a little bit towards all things purpose-driven. Came to London, where I'm currently residing, and I set myself up as a circular economy consultant. I did a little program on that particular topic called On Purpose here in London. And started kind of looking to some of the things that happen day to day in nature, which is all things circular, and try to inspire myself on, well, how can we bring this and inspire ourselves to apply some of these basic principles into day-to-day business. So looking at supply chains, looking at optimizing all of the waste streams that can come from manufacturing practices. And it's through my latest project working with an innovative recycling company called TerraCycle, an American company, that I discovered a fungi that had the ability to degrade polyethylene. And that was a little bit of a mind-blowing moment for me, because even though I knew about mushrooms' health benefits, because I had spent 7 years in China, I never knew that they had these incredible enzymatic capabilities that would effectively make them a toolbox to address all sorts of environmental challenges. And that got me really excited. And I started effectively listing all of the people, all of the companies, the university research that I could find on this super broad topic. And I just kept on digging a hole in which I haven't really got out of at the moment. And eventually it led me to create MycoStories.
That sounds very familiar. It's once you got bit by the bug, you're like, holy shit, that is yeah.
That's right.
Like you said, a hole you have to dig yourself out of. It's quite interesting, right? The applications also you find out through, what mushrooms are capable of. Like you said, the first thing is through eating, maybe, foraging, through your, maybe parents or grandparents, and then all of a sudden, holy shit, there's so much more. I'm really glad that you did all that. It's when I saw that the first time, I'm like, oh, it's like one of the visions I also had, but you kind of back it with way more capability, seems like, and resources to really create something meaningful out of it. I mean, you mentioned that it was through a project. How did you like really decide on creating MycoStories? Like, what is the idea behind it? Also, maybe the vision. What do you want to achieve with it?
Yeah, I can't resonate more with this concept that you put forward, that there's an increasing amount of people who are digging themselves into a hole of interest of all things fungi, mycology, and both conservation and innovation. For me, when I had this eureka moment, I basically thought that I was facing one of the biggest biotechnology conspiracy theory ever, where all of my life I had been kind of blocked away from this topic of fungi, this third kingdom that I had never been taught about in school, that very few people were talking about in the 20th century. And that now really has caught the media's attention. And to go back to your question, I guess when I was doing all this desktop research and reading both online and a variety of books, I couldn't help to notice already that I had to look for information in so many different places. Information was super scattered. And when I started to speak to some of the founders of these companies, some of the people leading this groundbreaking research on the topic of mycoremediation, Myco Protein, carbon sequestration using different types of mycorrhizal fungi, I couldn't help but to notice that these people were talking about a lot of very similar challenges that very often was linked to access to resources.
Right.
And when I say resources, generally it's funding first, skill sets, being able to go from the bench to industrial scale production, and knowledge and knowledge dissemination. So the ability to access knowledge and the ability then to spread the word and make sure that the work that you do goes way beyond the direct sphere of influence, which is yours. Might it be in an academic circle? Might it be a regional sphere of influence?
Right.
And I was really surprised as I was, in this process of accumulating knowledge and deciding, okay, what is going to be my role in all of this? Because I really want to get involved. I want to be part of the conspiracy theory too. And I thought there was potentially something to do on this concept of helping resources to flow better,
right.
And raising a much broader awareness around this topic of fungi innovation, but also fungi conservation. And I thought that maybe there was the role for a network or a platform that would operate a little bit as mycelium operates underground, connecting different plant species in the ecosystem, spreading information wide across boundaries, across sectors, in order for the whole ecosystem to thrive.
Right.
And so, for the lack of a better analogy, I'm hoping, and it's going in that direction, that MycoStories will be the mycelium enabling a lot of early stage fungi-based biotechnology companies to access to the resources that they need to scale, get in touch with the right people, unlock investment, strategic partnerships, for university and academic research to be widely available and understood. and for all of the regulators, the investors that are looking at this space to actually understand the potential of these applications, the complexities of putting these on the market and getting them to an industrial scale, and eventually have the patience also to work hand in hand with, across sectors, for the overall sector to deliver on some of the New York Times headlines. Will
Right.
fungi save the world?
Right. Well, I mean, I can't say it's been to the headlines yet, but I mean, the mycelium network is already working. Through your LinkedIn post, I got in contact with a new supplier I was not aware of, and turns out it was good. So for that, thank you very much. So
Shout out to Mushies.
exactly.
Great little nutraceutical mushroom supplier based out of Estonia.
It's it was very, very nice to talk to the founder and to really also exchange some thoughts on how he sees the market. And again, there was a lot of shared values, and I thought that's very interesting. And also, I mean, what you described, I think the attention needs to go to those applications, but because this eureka moment you had, it's usually when you talk to people who have no idea about mushrooms, you tell them about a couple of fun facts, and all of a sudden it seems like the mind is exploding. It's such a versatile, I mean, field where you basically there's you can think of anything that mushroom can play a role in it, right? So
absolutely,
it's very, very good. And also, with creating this ecosystem you're doing, what we realized when I talk to experts here in Germany, especially when they come from a scientific field, they also say a lot of times that when they started going into mushrooms when they were studying, there was almost no possibility to go elsewhere than pharmaceuticals. Like if you go into the market, like studying, and you want to have a career in the mycology field, the options you are left with is, and that's what most of the people know, is pharmaceuticals and maybe something in biology, but that's also again a scientific place. And it's very interesting that I mean, there is jobs out there, but they're very hidden. It's very hard for those companies to get their voice out there because they're specialized in something different, and they need people like you in order to spread the word and make it in a way also attractive. Because if you talk to people, it's my experience, most of the time it has such a bad or boring reputation that there needs to be, that's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah. Thankfully, within this sphere, within this niche ecosystem of hole diggers, there's a fantastic interest for anything linked to ecosystems. There's so much empathy, so much collaboration happening. Right. It's I was just at the All Things Festival, All Things Fungi Festival here in the UK. Meeting with mycologists from all over the world, some citizen scientists, some people who had just begun their journey, and could seriously not have discovered a better community. And yeah, I encourage anyone who's trying to enter the space just to meet up at local mycology clubs, to do what you can with whatever skills you have available. To act as opposed to just consume content. Like, try and do whatever feels good for you, whatever you think brings value, and begin your journey like that.
Yeah,
I think I'm constantly speaking and scouting organizations working with fungi. I can tell you there are a lot of jobs. I have over 700 startups on our personal database at MycoStories. There's a great ecosystem map on mycostories.com. look at all the companies out there, look at the potential jobs that you have out there. If you are in the field of science, there's a mountain load of job opportunities. Generally, the marketeers or pure business background, there are less of these opportunities, but I'm sure there's something out there for you.
Definitely. And so, I mean, it's a growing market as well. And so there's going to be more opportunities coming up. And I mean, to me, it seems like, like you said, the attention needs to go into that field so people are aware of it and also see it as an option. You're talking about purposeful work or things that are purposeful. I mean, there can't be a better way to work with mushrooms because they seem to be the last puzzle piece that we need in order to solve many of our current facing issues we're having.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of like a genius strike from me, but that's a good introduction into like the innovation schemes you are also attacking. Like from your point of view, you've been also, I mean, traveling all over the world, talking to and visiting those people who are hands-on, trying to solve the issues we're facing. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, I'm a strong believer, even though we're doing this virtually, I'd love to be, in your studio hanging out. But I'm a strong believer in face-to-face, three-dimensional meetups. And because when you meet up with someone virtually, you generally have a little bit of an agenda and you stick to the agenda. And it's rare that you veer too much off of it.
Right.
But actually, what's interesting is so much happens before or after a meeting when you're actually talking with someone and you meet them in person. And it's almost like the in-between meetings where the magic exactly. And so I had put as a priority for me to get out of the computer, the remote home working setting, and go travel in places that are underrepresented in the overall media and knowledge landscape globally. And so I spent 6 months last year in Asia and 6 months in Latin America this year. And during these trips, I had the opportunity of meeting entrepreneurs, researchers, artists, working with fungi, developing mycelium leather solutions in Indonesia, developing mixed Myco Protein and algae protein startups in Singapore, developing new tools to inoculate logs much faster in Japan, meeting with folks doing incredible conservation work in Hawaii, trying to catalog all the endemic species of Hawaii that are under threat, simply because they're colonized by much more aggressive strains that have been imported by the 2 centuries of foreign settlers that have inhabited the archipelago. And the list goes on. I haven't even started talking about Latin America, but the purpose of this trip was, as I mentioned, to meet people in the flesh, to try and share these great stories, the great research, and to go try and plug these entrepreneurs and other major stakeholders of the ecosystem into the kind of global or more Western European American ecosystem. And yeah, I really believe in this aspect of success that goes through cross-border collaboration and cross-sector collaboration. And so in order to build a trustful relationship, it's really helpful to go and shake someone's hand, look at him in his eyes,
Right.
or look at her in her eyes, and it was truly an amazing journey. Great way to mix business and pleasure. And apart from being a nightmare in terms of managing meetings on time zones that keep on clashing because you're all over the place, and you lose track of your own time zone at times. But no, super enriching, and it really enabled to bring MycoStories to being what it claims to be, a global ecosystem supporting everyone, supporting a mushroom product maker in La Paz, Bolivia, supporting a bioconstruction school in Puebla, Mexico, that is just starting their journey of educating other folks in the region about how to go about cultivating mushrooms to help them support themselves, and so what I want to make sure is that MycoStories isn't something that is only for startuppers or investors, only for the more Western traditional investment countries, but really something where everyone who is interested about the space of mycology and mushroom, might it be on the commercial, the research, or even the artistic side, is able to really be inspired and to get connected through the platform.
I love it. I mean, since you experience different cultures and their relationship towards mushrooms, like where do you see differences in our Anglo-Saxon world we're living in?
Yeah. So interestingly, in Europe, we can't put all of Europe in that same bucket, because you do have countries in Europe that are mycophiles, especially Northern European countries, or even in Eastern Europe, or some parts of Italy, when foraging is the 101 of grandfather, grandchildren relationship building. In France, for example, where I'm from, it's much less. So I would say we're a more mycophobic culture, and then there are countries where it's anything in between, depending on the community where you grew up. My own belief is that because the Anglo-Saxon world and a lot of the European world, a lot of our cultural norms and values have been driven by strong religious roots, foundations in Christianity, in the belief that there is a single God who will instruct its disciples of how to lead their lives, and what to pray to, what to believe in, and what not to believe in. And so when you have an organic kingdom, like the fungal kingdom, which has psilocybe species, psychoactive species that are very easy to stumble upon if you're working the field all day with your cows spreading dung on their field. You're very likely to find psilocybe species amongst other sorts of mushrooms, and because a few hundred years ago, we didn't have the diversity in our diets that we have today. You see something new, you're probably going to try it out. And the fact, I wouldn't be surprised that you had people that were alternative thinkers in the 14th century, and who were chewing on psilocybe species, suddenly becoming enlightened, discovering something that potentially resembles what they imagined God was, but potentially is far more complex and all-encompassing. And from that point, maybe they're going to start having wild ideas that to the clergyman and to the priest of the parish seem completely ludicrous, and to the fire with the witches.
Right.
And so I believe that this anchoring of European culture and Anglo-Saxon culture has probably put us in the countries that are more mycophobic, which unfortunately today means that we need a whole lot of education around the fact that if you look at all of the diversity of mushrooms, and so these are fruiting body mushrooms that I'm talking about, I think that there's about, on the 5 million that we expect to exist, the 150,000 that we have discovered, there is about 200, 250 mushrooms that have psychoactive characteristics. And there's probably about 40 that you can die from if you eat them.
Right.
So what's interesting here is you have a higher chance of getting high on picking up a random mushrooms than actually dying from it.
Right.
And also that, if you look at the numbers I've been talking about, the chance of you picking up mushrooms and dying from it are pretty low, even though I'm not promoting the fact that, go wild and eat all the, and run your own experiments in your digestive tract. No. But what's interesting is then you go to Mexico, where I spent 2 months in January and February of this year. Well, traditionally, especially in the region of Oaxaca or Chiapas in the southwest of Mexico, eating mushrooms has been for centuries their spiritual medium, and it has helped them to welcome new people on this planet. It's helped them in grieving processes. It has helped them to take decisions on what to do and what to plant and where to plant. So there's really a symbiotic relationship between those psychoactive mushrooms and cultural norms.
Right.
And of course, no,
also
go ahead.
Exclude that they're still religious, right? I mean,
absolutely.
From my own experience, mushrooms pretty much helped me to get like a new relationship towards what Christianity is talking about. It's just covered with control and all that, but it kind of broke through to the message, and that was quite interesting. And I mean, especially South America, I mean, they're very religious, they're Christians, but they have a strong community where they practice this almost like shamanic rituals, right? Which comes from mushrooms, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that calls for an interesting question when we look at how faith is evolving today, and how the role of faith is evolving in different countries.
Yeah.
If you look at Western countries, Europe and the US, my gut feel is that young people are more disconnected with a traditional religious faith.
You can see it in the numbers too. There's more and more people dropping out.
There you go. But I think it's potentially because it stayed fairly conservative and non-embracing of the way society is evolving and rapidly changing. And I was in the north of Bolivia a few months ago, working on an agroforestry project called Florestania at the border between Brazil and Bolivia. And what was really interesting there is to discover a religion called Santo Daime, which is a syncretic religion where disciples mix elements of African voodooism that comes from the slaves that were brought in to Brazil to work on sugar plantations and rubber plantations. You have Amazonian shamanism, and then you also have prayer to the main Catholic religious figures.
Wow.
Might it be Jesus or the other saints or Mary, etc. But in the center of the ceremony is drinking ayahuasca as a group. So with the elders, with the young people alike, and I find it fascinating to see that beliefs and faith evolve with time and evolve with different cultures that naturally blend in a world which is increasingly mixed culturally.
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear that. It's quite interesting to understand or maybe hear about how other cultures are doing it. I mean, what you're saying with, especially in the Western world, it seems like people are being more spiritual all of a sudden, but not religious, right? So they're not really in the club of Christianity, but to me at least, I mean, obviously also in my own bubble, but it seems like I come across more and more people who are believing in something bigger. They cannot really name it, but there's something they kind of believe in, and there's a lot of spirituality happening. And yeah, I mean, it's at the end, at least that's my opinion. It really doesn't matter if it's whatever you name it. But there's something out there, right? There's
That's right.
some intelligence. And I mean, if the more technology advanced we become, we realize these things, right? I mean, it's mushrooms kind of have their renaissance because we finally have the technology to really understand what's going on, right? The Wood Wide Web is something we figured out just a couple of years ago, but it's been there for probably millions of years. But us being able to understand what's going on took us a while. Also technology, and before that it was magic. Right?
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, can you maybe give an example of one of the applications you came across and maybe a highlight throughout you traveling?
Yeah, I'll pick one of the applications that deserves more attention, more investment, but also has an incredible potential in the world, the very wasteful world and very wasteful society we live in today. So I'm going to speak a little bit about microremediation. That actually most people who work in that field prefer talking about bioremediation, which is using natural organisms to break down complex molecules, which are toxins of some shape, way, or form, either stored into soil or stored into water. And there's really interesting research that was led by researchers in Japan, where they started using different strains of fungus to remediate and break down the radioactive molecules that were stored in the soil in areas around Fukushima. This is only still at a research phase, but there are some pretty impressive findings already that also corroborate some of the research that has been led in Chernobyl, where they have found fungal strains that actually love to feed on radioactive soil and literally like break them down, make them like turn them into soil where you can actually cultivate tomatoes or cucumbers again on. And this, I guess, is another example of the incredible enzymatic capabilities of fungal species that are probably one of the best example of the natural world of a story of adaptation. They've been here for 1.3 billion years. They've survived all mass extinctions on this planet, and through their incredible capacity to reproduce themselves, and their incredible capacity to go and find nutrient in places which are really difficult to survive in, and then break down molecules into nutrients that they really are among the few to be able to do, along with a variety of bacteria as well. But it really, for me, inspires a topic of research that really deserves more attention, more funding.
Yeah.
Because if you look, for example, on the ecosystem map on mycostories.com, you'll see it's one of the subtopics of innovation where there's the least companies that are actually using these biotechnologies in commercial scale, which is crazy when you realize how polluted all the suburbs of our cities are, for example, or if you realize the level of toxicity of places where you have industry operating for decades, or where you have mineral extraction, oil extraction happening in so many parts of the world, in Asia, in Africa. Obviously, less so in the countries where the richer nations live. Obviously, we prefer to kind of outsource those polluting industries to other parts of the world. But and very little solutions have been found to clean up these wasteland. And there's a company in Belgium that is spending a lot of time and energy. They've been operating for about a decade now. They're called Novo Biome, and they're very honest about the complexity of the issue, and how it's not a one size fits all solution. As complex as ecosystems can be, and when I talk about an ecosystem, your garden is an ecosystem, which is going to be potentially very different to my garden. And not to mention how if you include chemical pollution, chemical toxins on top of this, it just increases the degree of complexity of what you find in these soils. And so it's not the magic wand. I put a pleurotus or stratus in the soil and it cleans up everything. No, it can clean up some things, but in order to cater to all of these sets of ecosystems, it's like you need a recipe book. And so these companies, the one Novo Biome, you got Yphen in France as well, YPHEN, that are working on solutions to depolluate construction sites. And yeah, I think it's important to understand the potential, but also to remind ourselves that there's a long way to go, and that we need to work with fungi, but also with all sorts of other organic compounds, notably bacteria, in order to succeed in mycoremediation practices.
I think it's also like the knowledge, to spread the knowledge that this is even possible. Because I think what really struck me was when like farmers are not aware of the possibilities they have if they work with mycelium, right? It's crazy how we pretty much take all the resources out of our soil, which by now we know it's like only 10 centimeters, which has all the nutrients we need in order to grow crops.
Yeah.
And we kind of take it off inch by inch every year. And that's very, very important that we start to understand like how we can work with nature. And also, it's so crazy. Every time we think about technology, we kind of think it's our brainchild and we are so damn intelligent, right? It's and we think about machinery and all that, but the greatest technology is right in front of our feet.
Yeah.
Probably, with every breath you take, you inhale spores, and there's so much intelligence in mushrooms, and we have just begun, right? It's such a big field, and to understand how, like you also said, with bacteria, how they work together. And to me, it was quite interesting to understand that, especially in the farm field, that people who work with our soil have sometimes no idea about mycorrhiza mushrooms, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, one of the recent stats I was reading and using at the conference I was speaking at last weekend was that 50% of our topsoil has effectively been destroyed in the last 150 years. And when you consider that everyone's racing to find climate tech solutions to capture more of the CO2 in our atmosphere, well, the solution is right there. First of all, try and keep a healthy topsoil. And then, have a really healthy fungal population inside your soil. Fungi are one of the few organic species that have and are built from glomalin molecules, which are some of the best carbon storing molecules out there. So the more fungi you have in the soil, the more glomalin you have, and the more carbon you'll be able to sequester.
Right. Yep, it's quite the interesting field. You just mentioned that there's already a couple of companies out there, but it's not many. Like, what do you think is the main challenge for those companies and founders? Because I could think it's not easy to, for once, get funding, and then also, like, how do you make money with that? That's like one of the things that came to me.
Yeah.
But, like, what are the main challenges?
Yeah, so I think actually making money is not the issue, because when you look at, if we take the microremediation example again, there's so many construction companies that have to pay quite a lot to remove all of the soil which is polluted, extract it, and then replace it with non-polluted soil. And this costs so much money. So
Got it.
The people who manage to bring a solution which just involves basically letting this magical recipe do its work and break down those complex toxic molecules, will be sitting on a cash cow, I believe. If we look at the packaging industry, we produce, I think, about 12 billion tons of polystyrene every year. Very little is recycled. I think we only recycle just under 10% of all plastic produced on our planet. And so,
and the number is growing, right? So it's like,
and the number is growing. And we do have now solutions. I probably have, in top of head, 35 companies globally that are developing mycelium-based packaging alternatives to polystyrene. The company that manages to get to a price which is equal to polystyrene, it's a no-brainer. It's as light, it's fire retardant, it's got great insolution properties, and right now the only problem is it's just too expensive compared to the heavily optimized. You've got the brightest engineers who have been working for the last 75 years on how do we optimize petro-based biopolymers. So plastics have been optimized for so long. We're only at the very beginning of trying to produce, trying to potentially transform and process mycelium-based composites after they've been produced in order to enable incredible characteristics. But we're still, most of these companies are pre-seed or at seed level. But there are some everywhere. I spoke one recently in Egypt. There's a couple in Asia. There's plenty in China as well that no one's talking about. And so I think one of the main challenges for these companies is I've got a great product, but my product is too expensive to compete with its unsustainable alternative. So the only way it's going to be price competitive is if I produce it at times 1,000 the volume.
Right.
But in order to do this, I need a big factory. And in order to build a big factory, I need investors that are happy to, believe in the potential of what I'm putting on the market, and that, are happy to not be too impatient on their return of investment. It's not going to be the 3-year times 10 or 20 multiplier that some software or AI companies will be able to deliver. But in terms of the impact that it can really have, I'm calling out to all of the climate tech VCs, the biotech VCs, the green tech VCs. They all have different names. They all have a lot of money, and we're unfortunately in a time where people are risk averse, and so fungi-based innovation, knowing that you're working with a living organism. So standardizing the production of a living organism, is a challenge in itself.
Right.
But what's amazing is that we have companies that have done it. Yeah. Myco Works, a Californian mycelium leather company, has opened in September of last year a 300,000 square foot factory that employs over 250 people to produce mycelium leather at scale. Yeah. They've recently published a video that shows in a minute the production process. It's unbelievable. It's like looking a semi-automated production line where we've got robotic arms and lasers doing the work that I've seen was labor intensive in Indonesia with another company that is also at the forefront of that. So, we are seeing some successes and some signs that it is possible, but we just need to give those pioneers all the support that we can. And it comes with patience. It comes with additional expertise that can come from larger corporate groups that are able to potentially not provide the funding, but maybe the factory, maybe the equipment, maybe the bioreactors. There's another interesting collaboration case study between Enough Foods, a Myco Protein player, a startup based in the Netherlands, and Cargill, a big chemical product manufacturer. Well, Enough Foods didn't have to effectively invest in the millions of euros in debt that it would have needed in order to buy 50,000 liter bioreactors, but it's leveraging Cargill's capability to produce that. And so, I think we need to, everyone has a role to play. That's why I'm really rooting for cross-sector collaboration, and that because, as you said, fungi are so versatile, they probably have a play in your sustainability strategy. Might you work in the food industry, in the fashion industry, you name it.
Yeah, I I agree. That's why I always talk about mushrooms in order to, maybe inspire someone to look deeper in. Because, as I said, I think every field, especially when I talk to experts in the fields, it seems like there isn't any topic out there in the world where mushrooms don't play at least some role in it.
Yeah.
So we just need to open up our eyes and just realize how important they are. And hopefully more, especially intelligent people, go and maybe not work for the next pharmaceutical company and work in a field where they can really drive innovation forward, especially with sustainability and water is getting more and more scarce, and we gotta tackle those challenges. I mean, I can't do it. I'm way too dumb for that. But there's way more people out there who are definitely able to do that.
But you're spreading spores, Andreas. You're spreading spores of knowledge.
I see myself as a cheerleader. I'm on the sidelines cheering for those people.
Yes.
Yeah. If you think about innovation and the future, like where do you see the biggest impact? Is that still micro remediation, or is that something different?
I think some of the really exciting areas that we haven't talked too much about is definitely the alternative protein space. So actually, plant-based alternative proteins have been around for quite a long time. They have brought forward hundreds of startups. They've raised billions of dollars already. But the overall investment in plant protein, alt protein, so to replace animal protein, basically, produce rich protein, but at a fraction of the CO2 emissions or the water usage. That's really the promise of alt protein production. Actually, the investment and the interest has gone down for plant protein, but it seems to be going up for mycelium or Myco Protein, so fungi-related protein. And what's really exciting with Myco Protein is, first of all, its nutrition characteristic. So you've got all essential amino acids in there. You've got some vitamin B. You've got some fiber. And more importantly, when the companies that are launching mycelium-based protein products on the market, they're able to launch a product that requires very few additives. I'll give you an example. One of the big players in the mycoprotein space is a company called Meaty in the US. They've raised upwards of 100 million USD, I believe. Well, they have an alternative chicken product on the market. And on the ingredient list in the back, you see 99% mycelium based and 1% a few
additives.
Thank you. And so that's a big step up from the consumer that picks up a soybean, vegan burger and has a laundry list of terms, additives
they've never heard of.
He's never heard of, and I think that's really promising.
Right.
We also have a great company here in the UK called Adamo Foods that is developing full steak alternatives, but that are effectively a mycelium steak. So there's only one product in there. It's a steak. It looks like it's steak. It's ridiculous how similar and juicy and mouth salivating it looks. Like I haven't yet have had the chance of getting Nick, one of the co-founders, to have me chew on one of these. But just seeing the photo, I'm enthused. And I'm a meat eater. And when I see vegan products and plates, or when I see vegan photos, vegan product photos, I have to say I'm not too excited. But when I'm seeing mycelium-based alternative protein, I'm actually quite keen to try.
Well, I used to be a vegan, so I can tell you it's not a joke. It's really crazy because all of a sudden like you said, you see a laundry list of ingredients, and if you're not a chemic, you have no idea what you're eating, and it's highly processed. And I hope a lot of people know by now that that is not the way to go. We're not meant to eat highly processed food. Our digestive system has such a high it's too much for it. So as we can, if we can stay as natural as possible, and I mean mycelium based, that's easy to digest. We can break open those the what is it called, chitin in German?
Yeah, chitins.
Yeah, chitins. Thank you. So that's not a problem.
And then there's also all of the side products, the processed products made from mushrooms. So think of chutneys, think of little snacks, crisps.
Right.
There's an amazing array of companies that have started leveraging the texture, leveraging the flavor, the umami flavor of a lot of mushrooms, and starting to develop all these absolutely delicious products that I believe we're going to increasingly see on our plates in restaurants and at friends dinners, because they're really providing a new gastronomical experience.
Yeah, and it's not so. I mean, it's not so hard on our planet, right? It's the resources you need. If you just look into water consumption, like a mushroom needs a fraction of what an animal uses, but it has the same protein in it. So there's so much potential. It just needs to like get out there. It feels like when I look into the UK, you guys are a little bit ahead of us. There's way more products. There's way more also maybe an attitude towards trying new things. It seems like a little bit different here, but I mean, I also, when I have a little celebration on Saturday, and I already organized a couple of king oyster mushrooms, 3 kilograms. I'm going to try different things out, and one of them is going to be pulled, like a pulled pork alternative. And amazing. I tried it before, like those pulled pork burgers with mushrooms. It's just amazing. You have no idea that you're not eating an animal. It's same texture. It's amazing taste. It has the umami flavor, as you said. To create the umami flavor, people use like mushrooms inside of the spices. So it's already in there. It's such a great taste. And people just who need to lose their angst against or towards mushrooms, like you said, the mycophobia is it's a thing here. And I've been with a couple of friends out in the woods. We're just going for a hike, and I come across that a lot, that they don't want to touch the mushrooms. I'm like, you can't like poison yourself just by contact. Like there is no mushroom in Germany that will do that. So please touch it, get in contact with it and lose your fear.
Yeah. And they're quite easy to keep and to store, dehydrate your mushrooms. Quite easy when you actually need to eat them a couple of months later. You just put them in a nice little warm water bath, and then you've got the most amazing broth, which is infused with all of that rich flavor from whatever mushroom you've dehydrated, and you can use this for your sauces, for your soups. I'm a terrible chef myself, but that's one of the things that I generally try and take advantage of.
I like to hear that. And don't limit yourself. You're not an amazing chef yet. Okay, so keep trying. Marc, to be honest, I envy you a little bit. The stuff you do, I just admire it. It's amazing. Keep on doing it. maybe as an end note, is there anything that you would say has been like the most rewarding thing you've done with MycoStories so far?
Yeah, so the goal of MycoStories is really for shit to happen. So I'm not here just to promote content, research, just to, I want, this is more than a glorified blog. And for MycoStories to be a success, I need to hear, and I'm starting to hear an increasing number of stories of people who are now collaborating,
Perfect.
who have developed strategic partnerships, where you have a regional collaboration, when you have cross-sector collaboration. And so one of the things that MycoStories does to support that is we work with a network of consultants where we're helping investors identify good investment possibilities. We helped Decathlon, the sports manufacturer, identify strategic partnerships in the mycelium material space.
That's amazing.
That's and we're also helping funders to have access to the knowledge they need to maybe build a better product, the technical expertise that they might be lacking if they have a business or an architect background as a founder, or the business expertise they might need if they're a university spinout. And so the goal is really to, yes, keep on spreading spores of knowledge as we love to do, but also very much to go and work directly supporting the pioneers working in the space. May they be entrepreneurs, investors, industry leaders, or academic researchers.
Perfect. And I would say that's a good way to end it. Any last words you want to maybe put out there? If people want to get in contact with you, where can they find you? Also, we'll link also the companies we mentioned today in the notes. And just shout out.
Yeah, well, you can find me on the website mycostories.com. You can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, or email me directly, Marc, M-A-R-C, @mycostories.com. Always keen to support and hop on a small introductory chat. So don't be shy.
Yes, I love it. I can confirm that it works. That's how we got in contact. So it works. Thank you very much, Marc. As I said, I really love what you're doing. I can only support it. I try to introduce you to people. I try to connect with people on your ecosystem. So thank you for what you're doing. And I'm really eager to see where it takes us in a couple of years. And hopefully we stay in contact.
Definitely. Thanks, Andreas. And let's keep on digging these holes of interest.
Yeah, I can't stop.
All right.
All right. Bye.